To date, roughly 105 billion people have been born since the dawn of mankind, and we have known humans to exist for hundreds of thousands of years. From that seemingly massive number, about 7.8 billion people are alive right now. In contrast, the entire world population was only 1 billion at the start of the 19th century. As science and medicine evolved, humanity was able to rid itself of diseases that had poor survival rates. As a result, the world population is growing faster than ever. While it took 123 years for the total population to increase from 1 to 2 billion, the increase from 6 to 7 billion people happened in 12 years. It just so happens that it has been during this era that humans have also learned to use fossil fuels and other limited Earth resources on a very massive scale. It should be no surprise that we're depleting these resources at an abnormal rate. It is often said that necessity is the mother of invention, and we most definitely are developing renewable energy equipment and facilities at a very rapid rate. But there is also another important factor that we put aside: climate change. The extraordinarily high and increasing activities of humans are now harming the environment. So much so that the global temperatures are rising, which is the last thing we want for our planet. A few degree rise in global temperature may not sound like a huge deal, but it can and is causing water shortages and making it more difficult to produce food. Meanwhile, the demand for food, and particularly meat, continues to increase with the population. We are all quite well aware of the scarcity of food in many regions of the world. According to the UN, the total world population by 2100 would be close to 11 billion. Understandably, it is going to get increasingly difficult to meet the increasing demand for food while global warming causes further problems. It takes a huge amount of water to grow crops for animals to eat, for example, and to clean filthy factory farms. Animals, too, need water to drink. A single cow that is used for milk can consume up to 50 gallons of water each day, or even twice that amount in hot weather areas. A cow also takes 683 gallons of water to produce just 1 gallon of milk. So it takes more than 2,400 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef. Essentially, by going vegan, only one person can save around 219,000 gallons of water in a year. Also, if the entire world shifted to a plant-based diet, we would cut greenhouse emissions by 74%. That's according to a study published by Oxford University. Why would we ever want to switch to a plant-based diet, though? What we eat definitely matters to the planet, and it makes a lot of difference. Believe it or not, meat and dairy production are massive contributors to climate change. A 2013 study by the UN estimated that livestock was solely responsible for more than 14% of all man-made greenhouse gas emissions. Changing your diet can most definitely make a difference. Despite growing trends of veganism and increasing awareness about the environment, only about 5% of American citizens are vegans. Although these trends have been increasing globally as well, the major chunk of vegans also belong to the developed world. But why are people discouraged from eating natural, real, and genuine meat? Remember that to handle the demand for more meat also means that more land must be cleared to entertain more livestock. So, if we are going to eat to save the planet, consumers will need plant-based diets that fit into their current eating habits and not the other way around. Exchanging impossible meat for a pound of ground beef would save not only 7 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions, but 90 gallons of water and about 290 square feet of land. In a conventional burger, the heme comes from proteins found in blood and muscle called myoglobin and hemoglobin. The soybean plant makes a similar ingredient, though it's not in the kind of concentrated levels that are found in animal meat. To produce the huge quantities of plant-made heme necessary for producing alternative meat burgers, scientists at Impossible Foods have genetically engineered the yeast genome. You have probably already heard of conventional genetic engineering, in which genes from one organism are transferred to another to improve a trait. Basically, they have turned it into a small factory for producing heme. As a result, the product tastes closer to a beef burger than any veggie burger you may have ever tried. The company also claims that for one person, swapping Impossible meat for a pound of ground beef would save 7 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions, 90 gallons of water, and 290 square feet of land. And it is only made possible because of the new science of synthetic biology. The Impossible Burger is amongst the number of new alternative foods that use scientific techniques to produce meat and dairy products. According to them, it definitely tastes like the real thing. There have been a number of blindfold food tasting tests, and many people have not been able to tell apart the Impossible Burger from the actual meat burger. The reason is that these burgers are designed to smell, taste, and even bleed, just like the real deal. The meat is made using a combination of plant-based ingredients and combines wheat and coconut oil with a magic ingredient, heme. Heme is basically an iron-containing compound that gives meat its meaty taste. The implications of this are absolute game changers. Tom Ellis is lead research into synthetic biology at Imperial College London. He says that if Impossible Foods can show that they can do this at low cost and at scale with a decreased carbon footprint, then their product is definitely something to be excited about. Interestingly enough, Impossible Foods has no plans to stop with burgers. Chris Davis, who is a research fellow at the company, says that Impossible Foods chose to make a beef substitute first because of the outsized impact of cattle farming on the environment. He also added that heme is the ingredient that essentially drives the flavor of all meats. This means that the techniques employed to make beef flavor can be easily changed to make the other meat flavors. Is Impossible Foods the only alternative food startup that is using synthetic biology? Absolutely not. In the Bay Area, Clara Foods is focusing on egg substitutes, and Finless Foods is closely working on simulated fish. Both companies have attracted more than $3.5 million in funding, but neither has a product yet. The Oakland-based non-profit community project called The Real Vegan Cheese is also planning a synthetic version of cheese. They initially raised $37,000 through crowdfunding, and there was another undisclosed sum from a private investor. El Segundo-based Beyond Meat is another option that does not use genetically modified ingredients. The firm is backed with $72 million in venture capital from some of the big-name investors, including Bill Gates. They have also sold more than 25 million Beyond Burgers since 2016. Raymond Anthony is a professor of philosophy at the University of Alaska Anchorage and also a specialist in agricultural ethics. He believes that it might be difficult for humans to escape the historical anxiety about genetically altered foods. The sentiments and images conjured by factory farming and frankenfoods memes are powerful and long-lasting and have put industrial agriculture and the GM sector on the defensive that have forced them to overcome public distrust, he explained. Firms that have started making synthetic alternatives are facing challenges of scalability, regulation, and consumer resistance. The FDA has already deemed heme, Impossible Burger's key ingredient, safe to eat. However, that absolutely does not mean that the regulatory barriers will just cease to exist. Missouri has banned the use of the word meat to be applicable to anything that is not directly derived from an animal. Similarly, the National Farmers Union in the US is trying quite hard for the word meat to be removed from the labeling of synthetic meat products such as those sold by Impossible Foods. Not just them, but the European Union as well is also taking a precautionary approach. They have also imposed strict regulations on the development of gene-edited crops, despite the fact that Impossible Foods does not even sell its products in Europe yet. Consumers have always been specifically aware of genetically modified foods, and now those fears have been stoked in the US by the environmental group Friends of the Earth. They argue that the synthesized heme of Impossible Foods may contain unforeseen health risks. The company, of course, denies any such claims. Would you try out a meat substitute burger if it tasted like the real deal? Why or why not? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below as well.